Okay, welcome to topic 3. Tramping is too easy with all this money. My days were more exciting when I was penniless. It was such a relief to be free of disguises and prettiness and attractiveness to compare the societal burdens faced by the characters in this text. For this, there's two quotes and the propositional statement. So you certainly need to address the propositional statement, but you also need to understand the propositional statement in context of the two quotes. So the temptation here is to talk purely about shedding burdens. The two quotes, the first quote is all about, materialism, isn't it? Right? Too easy with money. Right? More exciting in some way. Yeah? And the second quote is more to do with disguises, prettiness. Right? You need to you don't want to talk about you want to talk about societal burdens in reference to these other things. Okay, so let's have a go. Now, societal burdens, we're all talking about shedding burdens. Now, shedding burdens and that's something that is quite, people are, quite familiar with that quote, but it's going to be overused a bit, so we need to find some other ways to kind of address that. Okay, and we're talking about through okay, we're talking about capitalism. Right, and I think the temptation here is to talk about fleeing society, but I think you've got to realise that, and we've talked about this a fair bit. We're not fleeing all society, are we? There's a particular view of society that they're both fleeing, and I think it's a capitalistic society. So I think that can be discussed, right? Not all society. Yeah, this view of consumerism. Yeah, and what made it more exciting, so there's a sense of testing yourself. I don't know why I began with a D. Testing. Yeah, testing yourself against that natural thing. And there's the aesthetic voyager. AE, aesthetic. Who doesn't need anything? Think about like a someone who sheds all all their fancy iPhones and whatever else, and just is there in that moment, in a special place and time. Okay. So that's one aspect of it. The second is disguises. What is meant by disguises? And I think these are the roles in society. Whether they're gender roles, whether they're class-based, especially with the McCandless. He's very worried about him being put into a class. Whether it's of a time period. Whether it's political, yeah, and prettiness, right? So this is talking about normality, I think. Yeah, free of all the trap of easy society. Yeah, because that easiness leads to laziness. Okay. All right. So let's have a look at the more specifics. So, I think it's important to realize that the way they think about these is that these roles are all illusionary. Yeah, that you they're not real. They feel like this is your identity and this is who you are. Yeah, but you don't have to act the way people say your gender should act. You don't have to act the way your class says you should act. You don't have to act the way your political bent says you have to act. So whether they're enforced by others or yourself, I think we can kind of point out that both McCandless and Davidson spend time talking about that these are illusionary. They're disguises. Now the word disguise is interesting here because it's really pointing towards it being an act of self, that you hide behind your gender, because it gives you a clear instruction on how to act. You hide behind your class because that gives you a clear instruction on how to act. But I think you need to challenge that a little. I think it can also be something that's imposed upon you by other people, and that escaping that is kind of interesting. Why do you do that? In order to escape this trap, so let's talk about money. So if what is the trap of money? Well, there's an inequity trap. Yeah. So there's the haves and have not, the lucky and unlucky. Yeah. And that is inherently unfair, right? But there's also just this easiness factor again. Yeah, you can become trapped in your money, and you don't learn to adapt and survive, and it leads to laziness. There's that testing that's you're never getting. You're not able to test yourself against society. So what are you shedding here? What are these societal burdens? Well, you're shedding your identity. Yeah, you're shedding the roles that are imposed upon you in society, and you're shedding the capitalistic, consumeristic, stuff, things that have been given to you or forced upon you. And I think what's interesting is how they both deal with that, because whereas McCandless seems to want to reject it universally, he does seem to want to come back to it. He talks about writing a book. He talks about his life afterwards, and McCandless also, Davidson also kind of talks about each thing is true in a particular time and place. What's true in one place is not true in another. That she recognizes she's going to go back to London and write a book. She recognizes that she's going to be in New York, and she can't poop all over herself while she's doing that. So the shedding burdens is this almost for them a temporary thing, and you could kind of challenge them on that. Okay, again, you need to put this all together to make some kind of logical, coherent statement of contention. I'll see you in the next video.